The group chat notification made my phone explode with a series of rapid alerts. Natalie's voice memo came first, her tone dripping with that familiar urgency. Emergency family meeting tonight, 7 p.m. at Le Bistro downtown. Don't you dare mark this as read and ignore us, Morgan. I stared at the messages piling up beneath hers, Wesley's terse "be there" followed by Ruby's string of emergency and family emojis, and finally my father Victor's formal paragraph about matters of significant family importance. My stomach twisted into a familiar knot of dread. Being the successful one in the family meant every so-called emergency inevitably led to the same outcome: someone needed my money again. My name is Morgan Campbell, and for the past decade, I've been my family's personal ATM. While they see only a thriving marketing executive who struck gold when her company was acquired, they conveniently overlook the years of 80-hour workweeks, the missed vacations, or the sacrifices I made building my business from nothing but student loan debt and determination. You're not seriously considering going, are you? Paige asked, looking up from her desk across our sleek corner office. The glass walls gave us a panoramic view of the city skyline, a daily reminder of how far we'd come since our dorm room startup days. That's the third family emergency this month. And suspiciously timed right after that Forbes article about the buyout went live. I sighed heavily, slipping on my tailored blazer. What choice do I have? Last time I missed one of these summits, Dad didn't speak to me for 2 weeks, then sent a group text about how I'd abandoned the family just like I abandoned our mother's memory. From where I'm standing, 2 weeks of silence from Victor Campbell sounds like a vacation package I'd pay good money for, Paige muttered, turning back to her computer. I pretended not to hear her, though the truth in her words stung more than I cared to admit. At the restaurant, I arrived at Le Bistro at 7:05 p.m., deliberately 5 minutes late, a tiny act of rebellion. The hostess led me to a private corner where my family had already claimed one of the restaurant's most expensive tables. They sat like vultures circling prey, each with their own brand of expectation. Wesley sprawled in his chair, fidgeting with his watch, the luxury timepiece I'd bought him last Christmas that he'd probably already used as collateral for some bet. Ruby sat with perfect posture, phone positioned at the ideal angle to capture the opulent setting for her Instagram followers, her manicured nails tapping impatiently against her water glass. My father Victor occupied the head of the table like a general at war briefing, his military straight back and stern expression unchanged since his army days. Natalie, the mastermind behind this gathering, flagged down a server as I approached. Finally, she exclaimed, waving a menu dramatically. We've been waiting ages. I went ahead and ordered appetizers, the truffle sampler and that seafood tower thing. Some of us have actual work responsibilities, I replied, remaining standing as I surveyed the elaborate table setting. What's the emergency that couldn't be handled over a phone call? Ruby finally looked up from her phone, her eyes sparkling with rehearsed excitement. We're planning a spectacular celebration for Dad's 75th birthday. Everyone's coming, the whole extended family, even those second cousins from Seattle and Great-Aunt Martha who never leaves her cats. I braced myself for what was coming next, watching as my family exchanged quick glances. We found this amazing mountain retreat, Natalie continued, sliding her phone toward me with images of what appeared to be a luxury estate. Private chef, stunning views, space for everyone. It's perfect for a milestone like this. She hesitated for just a breath before adding, the place is only $12,000 for the weekend. And then there's catering, decorations, the photographer. No, the word escaped my lips before I could temper it with diplomacy. The clinking of fine china and ambient restaurant noise seemed to vanish. 4 pairs of eyes locked onto me with expressions ranging from shock to outrage. What do you mean, no? Wesley straightened in his chair, abandoning his casual pose. It's for Dad's birthday. It's for family. I mean exactly what I said. No. I felt something hardening inside me, years of resentment solidifying into resolve. I'm done being the family bank. I'm done funding extravagant parties that nobody needs but everyone expects me to pay for. Natalie's perfectly made-up face flushed red beneath her foundation. After everything we've done for you. After all the support we've given through your career. Support? I laughed, the sound sharp and brittle in the hushed restaurant. What support exactly, Natalie? Was it the support of borrowing $25,000 for your fashion consulting business that never materialized? Or maybe it was you, Wesley. Was it supportive when I had to cover your gambling debts last Christmas to keep those guys from breaking your kneecaps? That was different. Wesley hissed, leaning forward, eyes darting nervously to nearby tables. I was in serious trouble. You're always in serious trouble. My voice rose despite my efforts to contain it, drawing glances from neighboring diners. All of you, constantly needing bailouts, constantly taking, never once giving anything back. I'm exhausted by it. Morgan, my father's voice cut through the tension, measured and deliberate as always. This celebration is about family unity. It's about honoring legacy and tradition. Your mother would have wanted, don't. I held up my hand, feeling my pulse quicken dangerously. Don't you dare use Mom to manipulate me. Mom would have wanted all of you to stand on your own 2 feet. She would have been heartbroken to see how you're all living, how you've turned her death into an excuse to stop trying. Ruby set down her phone, her carefully curated expression cracking. You've changed, Morgan. All this success has made you cold. Selfish. That word, selfish, hit me like a physical blow. The familiar accusation they'd wielded against me for years whenever I attempted to establish the slightest boundary. The emotional blackmail that had kept me funding their lifestyles while neglecting my own well-being. You want to talk about selfish? I grabbed my purse, suddenly desperate for air. Look at yourselves. Look at this $300 dinner tab you've racked up knowing I'd be the one to pay it. Look at the way you scheduled this emergency meeting the same day my company's acquisition made headlines. My chest felt tight, my breathing shallow. I'm done. Tonight and forever. If you walk out that door, Natalie called after me as I turned to leave, her voice carrying across the now silent restaurant section. Don't expect us to be there when you finally realize money isn't everything. I paused at the edge of the table, turning back one final time. When have any of you ever been there when I needed you? When I was working myself to exhaustion building my business? When I ended up in the hospital from burnout 3 years ago and none of you even visited? The words burned my throat. I don't need money. I need family who sees me as more than an ATM. The heavy door of the restaurant closed behind me with a satisfying thud that felt like punctuation to the end of a chapter. In my car, hands trembling against the leather steering wheel, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. 10 years of suppressed anger and resentment crystallized into absolute determination. My phone buzzed relentlessly in my purse, first with texts, then voicemails. I glanced at the notifications, Natalie's guilt-laden paragraphs, Wesley's terse demands, Ruby's tearful voice messages, and Dad's formal disappointment. With a decisive tap, I silenced them all. At home, I kicked off my heels and poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet. The floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown apartment reflected my image, successful by every external measure, yet hollow with exhaustion. I stared at myself for a long moment before calling Paige. So, she answered immediately, how bad was the family ambush? I finally did it, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. I said no. I walked out. About damn time, Paige replied, followed by a pause. Are you okay? You don't sound okay. No, I admitted, sinking into my sofa. I'm not. But I will be. They need to understand they can't keep using me like this. They need to learn that actions, and inactions, have consequences. What are you thinking of doing? The concern in her voice was palpable. I took a long, deliberate sip of wine, an idea taking shape in my mind. I'm going to teach them the lesson they should have learned years ago. Something that will either make them or break them, but either way, it ends the cycle. Morgan, Paige's voice held a clear note of warning. Don't do anything rash. Don't worry, I reassured her, already opening my laptop. This isn't about revenge, it's about growth. They just don't recognize it yet. As I began researching, drafting notes, I felt lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for someone is to stop cushioning their falls. And if my plan worked, my family might thank me someday, or they might hate me forever. Either way, I was done being their safety net. The harsh fluorescent lights of the emergency room buzzed overhead like persistent insects as I tried to process what had happened. 1 minute I was delivering the most important presentation of my career to potential investors, the next I was doubled over, gasping for air, my vision tunneling to pinpoints. Now I lay tethered to beeping machines, watching my elevated blood pressure numbers flash ominously on the digital display. Ms. Campbell? A doctor in navy blue scrubs approached my bed, tablet in hand. I'm Dr. Klein. We've reviewed your test results. You've experienced a severe panic attack, complicated by chronic exhaustion and dangerously elevated cortisol levels. A laugh escaped me, though nothing felt funny. Stress? You're keeping me here for stress? That's impossible. I have 3 client meetings tomorrow, a press conference about the acquisition, deadlines that can't, you're not going anywhere, Dr. Klein interrupted with gentle firmness. Your body has been sending warning signals that you've been ignoring for months, possibly years. This collapse today wasn't random, it was inevitable. Ignore these warnings again, and next time we could be having a very different conversation about heart damage or stroke. The gravity of his words slowly penetrated my denial. My chest tightened again, not from panic this time, but from the weight of recognition. At the hospital, a nurse entered with a stack of admission forms, her expression leaving no room for debate. We're keeping you for observation, minimum 48 hours. I'll need your signature here and here. She pointed to several spots on the papers with clinical efficiency. My phone illuminated with another notification. Against my better judgment, I glanced down to see Natalie's message, "Hope you're satisfied with yourself. Dad's completely crushed. The entire birthday celebrations canceled thanks to you. Everyone's asking what happened." The cardiac monitor betrayed me with an audible alarm as my heart rate spiked dramatically. I think I'll hang on to this, the nurse said firmly, plucking the phone from my hand before I could object. Dr. Klein's orders, no stress triggers. That definitely includes family drama. She placed my phone in the bedside drawer and closed it with finality. Later that evening, Paige arrived carrying my overnight bag and laptop case. Don't even think about checking emails, she warned sternly, noticing how my eyes lit up at the sight of my computer. The marketing world can survive without you for 48 hours, but I thought you might want to handle some personal matters while you're trapped here. What kind of personal matters? I asked, shifting uncomfortably against the hospital pillows. Paige sat on the edge of my bed, her expression uncharacteristically solemn. The kind you've been putting off, Morgan. Like updating your will and financial directives. This collapse is a wake-up call. What if today had been a heart attack instead of just a panic attack? I started to dismiss her concern with my usual deflection, but the words evaporated before I could voice them. The reality hit me with painful clarity. If something happened to me, my family would tear each other apart fighting over my assets, perpetuating the very dependency I'd enabled for years. I need a lawyer, I admitted finally. Already contacted Marcus, Paige replied, pulling out her phone. He cleared his schedule and he's on his way. Marcus arrived within the hour, leather portfolio tucked under his arm. His presence is steady and reassuring as always. As my friend Kenneth's brother and our company's occasional legal counsel, he understood both the business and personal dimensions of my situation. Interesting timing, he remarked dryly, settling into the visitor's chair. Kenneth mentioned the birthday party showdown. Said he's been waiting years for you to finally stand up to them. Then you understand why this needs to be handled delicately, I replied, adjusting my position against the pillows. I genuinely want to help them, Marcus, but not in the way they've come to expect. Not in a way that keeps enabling behaviors that are destroying them. He unzipped his portfolio and removed a legal pad. I'm listening. What exactly did you have in mind? For the next 2 hours, we designed something that was equal parts estate plan and intervention. Each family member would receive individualized conditions that directly addressed their specific destructive patterns. Natalie needs to understand what genuine need looks like, I explained, watching Marcus take detailed notes. I want her assigned to volunteer at the women's shelter downtown, the one helping victims of domestic violence rebuild their lives. Wesley should work with financial rehabilitation programs and gambling addiction support groups. I paused, thinking of my youngest sibling. And Ruby needs to participate in youth self-esteem workshops. She needs to see beyond filters and follower counts to recognize real value. And the inheritance itself? Marcus asked, his pen poised above legal paper. They'll receive their portions, but only after completing 6 months of documented volunteer work with their assigned organizations, I said firmly. No shortcuts, no hiring someone else to do it, no buying their way out of the commitment. Marcus let out a low whistle. You realize they're going to be absolutely furious. This is going to feel like public humiliation to people like your sister and brother. Good, I said, experiencing a strange sense of calm wash over me. Maybe fury will finally motivate them to change when nothing else has worked. And your father? Marcus asked carefully. I closed my eyes, my chest tightening slightly. The Veterans Center downtown. He needs to reconnect with what real service and sacrifice actually look like, not just the war stories he uses to manipulate people. As Marcus drafted the legal framework, Paige squeezed my hand. Are you absolutely certain about this? It's a drastic step. For the first time in years, yes, I replied, opening my eyes to stare at the speckled hospital ceiling tiles. They need this intervention. And honestly, I need this too, for my own sanity and health. I gestured to the monitors surrounding us. There's one more element to consider, Marcus said, looking up from his paperwork. To make these conditions truly effective and legally binding, we should inform your family while you're still hospitalized. The medical setting adds significant weight to the situation. You want me to tell them now? While I'm here? The thought made my pulse quicken again. He nodded, his expression compassionate but resolute. I'll arrange for them to come tomorrow. Let them initially believe your condition might be more serious than it is. Sometimes people need an emotional shock to truly wake them up to reality. The prospect of confronting my family made my chest constrict, but the steady rhythm of the heart monitor served as a tangible reminder of exactly why I was here in the first place. Do it, I decided. Call them all in. It's time they understood the consequences of what they've done, not just to me, but to themselves. Later that night, after Paige and Marcus left, I lay alone in the darkness, listening to the quiet symphony of hospital machinery. My phone remained silent in the drawer, but I could imagine the notifications accumulating, the missed calls, the accusatory messages, the family group chat exploding with indignation and drama. For the first time since Mom died, I felt like I was reclaiming control of my own life. Perhaps it was the anti-anxiety medication flowing through my system, or maybe just the bone-deep exhaustion, but I found myself smiling as consciousness began to slip away. Tomorrow everything would change. My family might hate me for what I was about to do, or eventually thank me, but either way, I was finished being their emotional and financial crutch. Sometimes the greatest act of love is forcing people to stand on their own 2 feet. The thought followed me into dreams where, for once, I wasn't frantically running to anyone's rescue. Instead, I stood perfectly still, watching from a distance as they finally learned to save themselves. The next day, they filed into my hospital room like somber mourners at a funeral, their expressions a calculated blend of worry and barely disguised expectation. Natalie clutched her designer handbag against her chest like armor. Wesley couldn't keep still, his fingers constantly adjusting his watch and checking his phone. Ruby kept sneaking glances at her reflection in the window, subtly adjusting her hair for what I suspected would become an emotional hospital visit post on her social media. Dad took the chair closest to my bed, his military posture intact despite his attempt to appear concerned rather than commanding. Marcus stood professionally by the window, briefcase ready. Paige positioned herself near the door, arms crossed defensively, her protective instincts on full display. "Oh, sweetheart," Natalie began, her voice dripping with theatrical sympathy that didn't reach her eyes, "why didn't you tell us you were so ill? We would have been here sooner." "Because I'm not critically ill," I replied flatly. "I'm here because of stress-induced collapse, stress that comes directly from dealing with all of you." The room fell into stunned silence, the only sound the rhythmic beeping of my heart monitor. "What's he doing here?" Wesley asked suspiciously, jerking his chin toward Marcus. "I've asked Marcus to help me revise my will and establish a trust," I explained calmly, watching their expressions transform in real time. "Recent events have made me realize some significant changes are necessary for everyone's well-being." Natalie immediately straightened her posture, business instinct kicking in. "Of course. You need to protect your assets with everything that's happening with the acquisition. I completely understand the timing." "Let me finish," I cut her off with a raised hand. "Marcus, the documents, please." He opened his briefcase and methodically distributed 4 sealed envelopes, each with a family member's name handwritten on the front. My family stared at the envelopes warily, as though they might contain anthrax rather than paper. "Open them," I directed, my voice steadier than I expected. The sound of tearing paper echoed through the sterile hospital room. I watched their faces transform in real time as they read, confusion giving way to disbelief, shock morphing into indignation, and finally settling into outright anger. "This has got to be some kind of sick joke," Ruby broke the silence first, her carefully curated image cracking. "You want me to work at a youth center for 6 months? With actual troubled teenagers? I create aspirational content, I'm not a social worker. A gambling addiction and financial recovery center?" Wesley crumpled the letter in his fist, face flushing red. "Have you completely lost your mind? Do you have any idea what this would do to my reputation in the financial sector?" Natalie's face had drained of all color beneath her makeup. "A women's domestic violence shelter? I can't possibly, this isn't," for once, my articulate sister was at a loss for words. "You can and you will," I stated firmly, sitting up straighter despite the dull ache in my chest. "If you want any part of my estate or trust. These are my non-negotiable terms, 6 months of documented volunteer work at your assigned organizations. No exceptions, no purchasing substitutes, no buying your way out of the commitment. This is absolutely preposterous, my father exploded, waving his letter violently. The Veterans Center? I served my country with distinction for 22 years. I have medals, commendations, exactly, I interrupted, meeting his glare directly. So you should have no problem serving again, this time by helping other veterans who've sacrificed everything and now struggle to reintegrate into civilian life, something you've clearly struggled with yourself. And if we refuse this humiliation? Natalie demanded, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. Then you receive nothing, I replied, keeping my voice level and controlled. My entire estate will go to these organizations instead. It's entirely your choice. You can't possibly do this. Wesley stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. This isn't legally enforceable. No court would uphold this kind of manipulation. Actually, Marcus stepped forward, his professional demeanor unshakable. It's completely legal and binding. I've drafted all the necessary documentation with extreme care. Ms. Campbell's conditions are explicit, reasonable, and fully enforceable under trust law. This is revenge. Ruby accused, tears now streaming down her face, smearing her carefully applied makeup. This is punishment for the birthday party thing. You're using your money to control us just because we asked for your help. No, I said softly, feeling a strange calm despite the emotional storm surrounding me. This is an intervention. Look at yourselves, really look. Natalie, when's the last time you earned your own money instead of living off your savings or my handouts? Wesley, how many times have I bailed you out of financial disasters of your own making? Ruby, would you even recognize yourself without filters and carefully staged photos? Do you know who you actually are beneath that curated perfection? And me? My father's voice dropped dangerously low, a tone I recognized from childhood confrontations. What's my alleged great sin in all this? Enabling all of it, I replied without hesitation. Teaching them through your example that taking from others is easier than standing on your own feet. Showing them that manipulation through guilt and obligation is an acceptable substitute for genuine love and support. You're our sister, Natalie pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion that actually seemed genuine for once. Our daughter. Family is supposed to help family. I'm not helping anyone by being your personal ATM, I gestured weakly at the hospital machinery surrounding me. Look where that approach has gotten me. Look where it's gotten all of you. This stops now. Paige stepped forward from her position by the door. I think Morgan needs to rest. Her heart rate is climbing again, and you've all heard the doctor's orders. You have your letters. The choice is entirely yours. Choice? Wesley laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet room. This isn't choice, it's blackmail dressed up as concern. No, I corrected him firmly, this is tough love. Something I should have had the courage to implement years ago. They left one by one, each exit punctuated by different emotions, Natalie's quiet, seething anger, Wesley's frustrated cursing, Ruby's theatrical sobbing. My father was last to leave. He paused at the doorway, turning back with an expression I couldn't quite decipher after decades of his emotional distance. Your mother would be deeply ashamed of what you've done here today, he said quietly, words meant to deliver a final, devastating blow. No, Dad, I replied, feeling unexpected tears spring to my eyes. Mom would have done this years ago. She was stronger than all of us combined, strong enough to set boundaries that I've only now found the courage to establish. After they left, after the door closed behind them, Paige sank onto the edge of my hospital bed. Well, that went about as harmoniously as a cat being bathed. Marcus gathered his papers methodically. They'll eventually come around, or they won't. Either way, you've done the right thing, for them and for yourself. Have I? I whispered, sudden uncertainty washing over me now that the confrontation had passed. You should have seen their faces. The betrayal, the hurt, I did see their faces. Paige squeezed my hand gently, and beneath all that righteous indignation and anger, I saw something else, genuine fear. Because for the first time in their adult lives, they're facing real consequences for their choices. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. A message from Kenneth. Marcus told me what happened. About time someone gave them all a reality check. I'm here for whatever you need, just say the word. I smiled slightly, remembering why Kenneth was the only extended family member who hadn't received a conditional letter. He'd built his business from nothing, facing setbacks without reaching for handouts, offering help to others rather than constantly demanding it. Get some rest, Paige ordered, adjusting my blanket with uncharacteristic tenderness. The hard part is over. But as I lay there watching the sunset paint golden streaks across my hospital window, I knew with absolute certainty that she was wrong. The hard part wasn't over, it was just beginning. For all of us. 2 weeks after my hospital release, Paige drove me to the women's shelter where Natalie was scheduled to be volunteering. We remained in the car across the street, watching the entrance with skepticism. She won't show, I said definitively, checking my watch for the third time. This is Natalie we're talking about. She's probably hired someone to impersonate her. $20 says you're wrong, Paige replied, suddenly pointing toward a figure hurrying up the sidewalk. Look. The woman approaching the shelter entrance was almost unrecognizable as my fashion-obsessed sister. No designer handbag, no statement jewelry, no impossible heels. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore jeans with a plain sweater and practical flats. She hesitated at the entrance, visibly took a deep breath, squared her shoulders with determination, and then walked inside. Well, I'll be damned, I murmured, genuinely stunned. 1 down, 3 to go, Paige said with satisfaction, starting the car. Where to next? The Gambling Addiction Recovery Center was across town in a renovated church building. We found Wesley outside in the courtyard, smoking a cigarette and engaged in what appeared to be an intense conversation with an older man in worn clothing. As we watched from a distance, the man broke down in tears. Wesley awkwardly patted his shoulder. My brother had never been comfortable with others' emotions, then pulled out his phone and began showing him something on the screen, pointing at different areas with animation. That's Harold, a voice said behind us, making us both jump. We turned to see a woman who introduced herself as the center's director. Your brother has been helping him set up a budgeting app and financial recovery plan. Harold lost his retirement and nearly his marriage to sports betting. Wesley seems to have quite a natural talent for connecting with our members and explaining financial concepts in terms they understand. Takes one to know one, I suppose, I said, feeling a strange tightness in my throat. He's been showing up consistently 3 times a week, never late, she continued. He's even started attending the recovery sessions himself. Says he's learning as much from them as they are from him. The youth center was our next stop. Through the large windows, we could clearly see Ruby sitting in a circle with about a dozen teenage girls. Her face was shockingly bare of makeup, and she was gesturing expressively as she spoke, her usual carefully controlled demeanor replaced with genuine animation. One of the girls was wiping away tears while nodding vigorously at whatever Ruby was saying. What on earth could she be telling them? I wondered aloud, genuinely curious. A staff member overheard my question as she walked past us. She's sharing her personal journey with social media addiction and body image issues. The girls find her incredibly relatable because she can show them exactly how manipulated those perfect images are. She's organizing a real beauty workshop for next week with before and after editing demonstrations. Ruby? My sister Ruby is doing this? I couldn't mask my disbelief. The woman nodded enthusiastically. She's been an absolute revelation for our program. Yesterday she told the group she's finally finding genuine purpose beyond chasing follower counts and sponsorship deals. The girls trust her because she's been exactly where they are, obsessing over likes and comments as validation. Our final destination was the Veterans Center on the outskirts of town. My stomach churned nervously as we pulled into the parking lot. My father's sensible sedan was there, but surprisingly, so were several other vehicles I recognized from family gatherings. Inside, we discovered my father in the recreation room, deeply engaged in a chess match with an elderly veteran. More shocking still, my Uncle Robert was in the physical therapy area helping a young amputee with exercises, while Aunt Jane organized care packages in the community room. Your father has become our most passionate recruiter, the center coordinator told me, pride evident in her voice. He's brought in nearly half his golf club as regular volunteers. Says working here reminds him of the true camaraderie and purpose he felt during his military service, something he'd lost sight of over the years. I honestly don't understand what's happening, I confessed to Paige as we drove away from our surveillance tour. They're actually doing it, all of them. And not just showing up, they're genuinely engaging. Maybe they needed this push, she suggested, glancing over at me. Or maybe deep down, they needed purpose and meaningful connection more than they needed financial security. That evening, my phone lit up with an unexpected notification. It was a message from Natalie, met a woman today with 3 children, escaping an abusive husband with nothing but the clothes they wore. Her story reminded me so much of Mom before she met Dad. I never truly realized how fortunate we were, despite our complaints. This woman has real problems, not just inconveniences. Then came a text from Wesley, helped a former investment banker today who lost his home, marriage, and career to sports betting, just like I was headed before you stepped in. It's strangely empowering being on the guidance side of the equation instead of the desperation side. Ruby sent a selfie that momentarily made me question if it was actually her face completely natural without filters or makeup, surrounded by smiling teenage girls making peace signs and silly faces. The caption read, "These incredible young women think I'm here inspiring them, but the truth is completely the opposite. They're teaching me how to be real again." My father's message arrived last, characteristically brief, but the words stunned me. Your mother would have been proud of all of us today. Especially you. I sat on my living room sofa, reading and rereading these messages, trying to reconcile them with the family I'd known my entire life. Paige brought over 2 glasses of wine, settling beside me. "Having second thoughts about your tough love intervention?" she asked, studying my expression. "It wasn't about revenge or punishment," I protested, though the words sounded defensive even to my own ears. "No?" She raised a skeptical eyebrow, handing me a glass. "Okay, maybe there was a small element of that," I admitted reluctantly, but I never anticipated this response. I expected resistance, resentment, maybe eventual compliance, not transformation. My phone buzzed again with a message from Marcus. "Kenneth and I visited the Veterans Center this afternoon. Your father proudly introduced us to everyone as my daughter's family. First time in a decade he's acknowledged me as anything beyond your legal representative. Whatever you set in motion here goes beyond legal documents. You know what's truly surprising in all this?" I said to Paige, swirling the wine in my glass. I thought I was teaching them a practical lesson about financial independence and not depending on me for handouts, but they're learning something far more profound. They're discovering who they actually are without the safety nets and prescribed roles they've been hiding behind their entire adult lives. Paige nodded thoughtfully. The status-obsessed sister, the risk-addicted brother, the validation-hungry influencer, the authoritarian father, those identities are crumbling. I took a contemplative sip of wine. Maybe those personas were just protective masks they got trapped behind, and they forgot how to take them off. And what about you? Paige asked, her voice gentle but probing. What mask are you removing in this process? I considered the question seriously, the perpetual family fixer, the reluctant ATM, the responsible one who sacrifices her own well-being to rescue everyone else. And how does that feel, stepping away from that role? I smiled, thinking about Natalie's newfound empathy, Wesley's pride in helping others, Ruby's authentic connection, and my father's unprecedented acknowledgement. It feels like freedom, I replied honestly, for all of us. Paige raised her glass in a toast. To freedom, then, and to the mysterious workings of karma, which has proven itself a far more effective teacher than any strategy we could have devised. We clinked glasses, and I felt the last persistent knot of tension in my chest finally begin to unravel. Sometimes the most effective revenge isn't revenge at all, it's creating the circumstances where people can genuinely surprise themselves. 1 month later, the family meeting wasn't my suggestion. Natalie organized it exactly 1 month into their volunteer work. This time, we gathered at my downtown apartment, neutral territory away from the emotionally charged spaces of our past confrontations. They arrived together, and I was momentarily taken aback by their transformations. Natalie's designer wardrobe had been replaced with practical, understated clothing. Wesley's perpetual nervous energy had settled into a calmer presence. And Ruby's face showed natural laugh lines and expressions instead of the frozen perfection of Botox and fillers. We need to talk, Natalie announced as they settled onto my living room furniture. About what you did to us. I braced myself, sitting straighter. Okay. I'm listening. You manipulated us, Wesley began, his tone direct but lacking its usual aggression. You used your financial position to force us into situations we never would have chosen. You're right, I acknowledged without defensiveness. I did exactly that. You had no right to make those decisions for us, Ruby added, though her voice lacked the venomous edge I'd anticipated. Maybe not, I conceded, but let me ask you honestly, would any of you have voluntarily engaged with these organizations otherwise? Heavy silence filled the room, providing its own answer. I encountered someone yesterday, Natalie said suddenly, breaking the tension. A woman at the shelter who constantly calls her sister for financial help, making endless excuses, playing the victim while taking no responsibility. Watching her, I suddenly saw myself with painful clarity, and I felt genuinely ashamed of who I've been. At least you didn't destroy your own future and nearly everyone else's around you, Wesley muttered, staring at his hands. Yesterday, I counseled a man who gambled away not just his own savings, but his children's entire college fund. I couldn't stop thinking about all the times I swore I would stop betting, all the times you rescued me from the consequences. My girls. Ruby said softly, using the term of affection she'd adopted for the teenagers at the center. They showed me their social media accounts yesterday, all the filters they use, the editing apps, the hours spent trying to capture perfect moments that never actually existed. I saw my own reflection in every single one of them, that desperate, exhausting need to maintain an illusion of perfection. My father cleared his throat, his military bearing softening slightly. The men at the center, some of these veterans have lost absolutely everything: families, homes, health, dignity. And there I was, treating my own daughter like a personal financial institution while preaching about sacrifice and duty. I didn't implement this plan to punish any of you, I said, feeling unexpected emotion tighten my throat. I did it because we were all drowning in different ways. Me, trying to save everyone at the expense of my own well-being, all of you, expecting to be continually rescued without developing your own strengths. You could have simply talked to us directly, Natalie protested, though the argument sounded hollow even to her. Would that conversation have made any difference? I challenged gently. Or would you have called me selfish again, manipulated me with guilt and family obligation until I relented, following the pattern established years ago? The silence that followed was answer enough. I absolutely hate what you did, Wesley said finally, meeting my eyes directly. But I desperately needed it. We all did. The most unexpected part, Ruby added, her expression thoughtful, is that I genuinely don't care about the inheritance anymore. These teenagers at the center, they need what I can offer. They truly need me, not my follower count, not my connections or staged lifestyle photos, just my authentic experiences and attention. That's precisely what your mother always tried to instill in all of you, my father said quietly, surprising everyone. Service beyond self. Remember how she volunteered constantly, even during her illness? We used to criticize her for wasting precious time and energy. She was the strongest one among us, I said softly. I simply borrowed from her playbook when I couldn't find another way forward. Natalie stood up abruptly, her emotions visibly conflicting across her face. I'm furious with you, Morgan, for the manipulation, for the ultimatum, for the public exposure of our flaws. She paused, hands trembling slightly. But I'm also profoundly grateful, and I honestly don't know how to reconcile those feelings. Welcome to authentic personal growth, I replied with a gentle smile. It's messy, uncomfortable, and rarely follows a straight line. The women's shelter desperately needs their children's playroom renovated, Natalie said after a moment of reflection. The space is depressing and inadequate. I was thinking, maybe we could tackle it together as a family project. My girls from the center could design and paint a mural, Ruby suggested, animation lighting up her face. You should see their artwork, they're incredibly talented when given the opportunity to express themselves. Several veterans from the center have construction backgrounds, my father added, leaning forward with unexpected enthusiasm. I could coordinate with them to supervise the structural work. They're always looking for meaningful projects. I can create and manage the budget, Wesley offered, his financial analyst skills resurfacing with positive purpose. Make sure we maximize every dollar for materials and supplies without sacrificing quality. I leaned back, watching them brainstorm with growing excitement. Paige's earlier observation echoed in my mind. Maybe what they'd been craving wasn't money, but genuine purpose and connection. I have one non-negotiable condition, I said, interrupting their planning. Whatever we undertake, we do it together as equals. No more power dynamics, no more scorekeeping, no more old patterns. Does this mean you're actually forgiving us? Ruby asked, hope brightening her expression. I never stopped loving any of you, I clarified carefully. I simply stopped enabling behaviors that were hurting all of us. There's a crucial difference. My father stood slowly, his military bearings softening as he approached where I sat. His eyes were uncharacteristically moist. I failed you as a father, failed all of my children. I became so fixated on what I believed we deserved and were entitled to that I completely lost sight of what we were actually capable of creating ourselves. We all failed each other in different ways, I said, rising to embrace him for what felt like the first time in years. But we're finding our way back now. One by one, they joined our embrace until we were all entangled in an awkward but genuine group hug, simultaneously laughing and wiping away tears. So, Natalie said as we finally disentangled ourselves, regarding that playroom renovation project. I'll contact Marcus, I offered, reaching for my phone. He can help navigate any permits or legal requirements we'll need. And Kenneth, Ruby added. He's brilliant at coordinating complex projects with multiple stakeholders. As they departed that evening, enthusiastically assigning responsibilities and exchanging ideas, I sensed a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The toxic dynamics of resentment, dependency, and manipulation were gradually giving way to something healthier, more balanced. My phone vibrated with a message from Paige, verdict on the family summit? I typed my response thoughtfully. They're simultaneously angry and grateful, which is probably exactly where we all need to be right now. Sometimes the strongest families aren't the ones that never fracture, but the ones that break apart and deliberately rebuild themselves into something stronger and more genuine than before. Saturday morning at the shelter, the women's shelter playroom transformation was already in full swing when I arrived early Saturday morning. Paint cans, drop cloths, and construction tools organized the space in controlled chaos, but what truly captured my attention was the sight of my family working together with genuine purpose. Ruby stood confidently on a ladder, directing her teenage artists as they sketched an elaborate forest scene across the largest wall, their design cleverly incorporating inspirational words hidden among the branches and leaves: strength, resilience, hope, dream, worthy. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. Natalie called out playfully, roller in hand, paint splattered across her old jeans. We started without you. Couldn't wait. Someone had to bring sustenance, I replied, holding up 2 carriers of premium coffee and a box of pastries. Where's Wesley hiding? In the courtyard with Dad and his veteran crew, constructing the storage units, she replied, gesturing toward the back exit. They're working together like they've been doing this for years. I navigated through the activity to the outdoor space, where I found my father demonstrating precise measuring techniques to 2 teenagers while Wesley collaborated with a contractor, reviewing blueprints spread across a makeshift table. See, if we modify this section of the design, Wesley was explaining, pointing to specific measurements, we can reduce material costs by nearly 20% without compromising structural integrity or functionality. The contractor nodded with professional respect. You've got a remarkably practical mind for this type of work, young man. My father noticed my approach and waved enthusiastically. Perfect timing. We could use another set of capable hands for the next phase. For the next several hours, I moved between various groups, painting, assembling, and observing my family members in their element. Natalie orchestrated donations of books, educational toys, and supplies, coordinating everything with the same meticulous attention to detail she had once reserved exclusively for luxury shopping expeditions. Maria's coming by today with her children, she informed me during a water break, wiping perspiration from her forehead. The woman I mentioned before, the one with 3 kids escaping an abusive situation. The one who reminded me of Mom's early struggles. She nodded, a spark of pride in her eyes. We've secured her a position doing administrative work at a law firm that partners with the shelter. She starts Monday. That's incredible, Natalie. You did that. We did it together, she corrected firmly. The shelter staff and I collaborated. Turns out my networking skills and contact list serve purposes far more valuable than tracking down exclusive sample sales. Inside, Ruby sat cross-legged with her teenage protégés during their break, showing them something on her phone that had them all leaning in with interest. That's me at exactly your age, she was saying, swiping through photos. Look at all those filters, that excessive makeup, the staged backgrounds. I genuinely believed it made me special, worth something. Now I barely recognize that person, she seems like a stranger wearing a mask. But you're actually really beautiful without all that fake stuff, one girl commented with teenage directness. Ruby's smile contained a warmth I hadn't seen since childhood. It took me 30 years and one extremely determined sister to finally understand that. I don't want it to take you that long. By late afternoon, the playroom had undergone a remarkable metamorphosis. Vibrant murals brought the walls to life with color and imagination. Newly constructed storage units stood organized and child-accessible. Donated toys, books, and learning materials filled freshly painted shelves. My father and his veteran volunteers had even constructed a reading nook with comfortable cushions and excellent lighting. "This is absolutely extraordinary," the shelter director said, wiping away tears as she surveyed the transformation. "The children who come through our doors, they've never experienced anything like this. This space represents possibility. And we're just getting started," Wesley announced with uncharacteristic public confidence. "The men from my financial recovery group are organizing a fundraising gaming tournament. All proceeds will support the shelter's educational programs. My girls want to establish a weekly art therapy session," Ruby added enthusiastically. "They've already created a curriculum outline. The veterans have offered to upgrade the entire security system," my father contributed. "Motion sensors, better locks, surveillance, all installed pro bono." I stepped back slightly, watching as they continued developing plans, coordinating efforts, proposing solutions, and notably, not a single one of them turned to me for financial backing or problem solving. Paige appeared beside me, professional camera in hand. She'd been documenting the day's transformation for the shelter's website and fundraising materials. "Still believe this intervention was motivated by vengeance?" she asked quietly. Before I could formulate an answer, commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. Maria, the woman Natalie had mentioned, stood in the doorway with 3 children clutching her hands, their eyes widening with wonder at the colorful transformed space. "Welcome to your new playroom," Natalie said warmly, walking over to guide them inside. The youngest child, a girl barely 6 years old, broke free and ran directly to the reading nook. "Mommy, look! Books with princesses!" Maria's composed facade crumbled as she burst into tears. Natalie embraced her instinctively while Ruby knelt down to engage the other children, showing them how to find the hidden words in the forest mural. Wesley and my father began explaining the practical features of the storage systems, specially designed for families rebuilding their lives from scratch. "No," I finally answered Paige's question, my throat tight with emotion. "This was never about revenge. This was about breaking destructive patterns that were hurting everyone involved. Look at them now, really see them," Natalie, who once judged people by their designer labels, comforting a woman in worn clothes with unwashed hair, Wesley, who gambled away thousands on sure things, now proudly calculating cost-saving measures, Ruby, teaching young girls to value their authentic selves above filtered perfection, my father, serving others rather than demanding service from them. "Your mother would have absolutely loved witnessing this," Paige said quietly, capturing the scene with her camera. "She did love this," I replied with sudden certainty. "She tried showing us this path all along. We simply weren't ready to recognize it until now." My phone vibrated with a message from Marcus, "Building permits approved for the shelter's kitchen renovation project. Ready whenever your team is." I looked across the room at my family members, each deeply engaged in their respective contributions, each finding their unique ways to help without direction. No one had asked me to finance the kitchen renovation. No one had demanded that I solve every problem. "Tell them we'll begin planning next week," I replied. The whole family is committed to the project. Because that's what we had finally become, truly a family. Not united by obligation or financial dependency, but connected through the simple, powerful act of helping others and, in that process, rediscovering ourselves. "Hey, Morgan," Ruby called across the room. "Stop standing around looking philosophical and come help us organize these art supplies before they take over the entire room." I smiled and joined them without hesitation, just one more pair of hands among many in a room full of people learning the profound difference between giving and taking. 6 months later, the 6-month mark arrived with startling swiftness. Marcus contacted me about scheduling a formal meeting at his law office to review the completion of my family's volunteer requirements, but my family had entirely different plans. "We want to meet at the shelter instead," Natalie informed me with an air of mystery. "There's something you need to see in person." I arrived at the women's shelter feeling mildly apprehensive, only to discover not just my immediate family awaiting me, but an entire community: Maria and her children, the teenage artists from Ruby's program, veterans from my father's center, members of Wesley's financial recovery group, all mingling comfortably in the shelter's newly renovated community room. "Surprise!" Ruby exclaimed, rushing forward to pull me inside the decorated space. "We're celebrating," Natalie explained, appearing beside me with a professional-looking folder in hand. "Celebrating what exactly?" I asked, taking in the elaborate food spread and festive decorations transforming the once utilitarian space. 6 months of transformation," Natalie replied, opening the folder with unmistakable pride. "And we have concrete results to show you." She spread out a series of detailed reports and charts. "These are the shelter's statistical outcomes since our volunteer initiative began: successful job placements up 42%, permanent housing placements increased by 53%, and domestic violence survivors returning to abusive situations down by 61%. Wesley stepped forward with his own documentation. 14 members of my financial recovery group have remained gambling-free for 3 months or longer. We've established a financial literacy program that's now being adopted by 3 other recovery centers in the state. My girls," Ruby beamed, gesturing toward the teenagers now arranging an art exhibition along one wall, "have all improved their academic standing. 3 received college acceptance letters last week, including 2 full scholarships." My father cleared his throat, uncharacteristic emotion evident in his voice. "The Veterans Center has more than doubled its volunteer participation. We're breaking ground on a new transitional housing wing next month with support from several construction companies run by veterans." "What exactly are you all saying?" I asked, though the answer was already crystal clear. "We're saying we're not stopping," Natalie declared with unexpected conviction. "Trust fund or no trust fund, inheritance or no inheritance. We're fully committed now. You couldn't make us quit even if you tried. Consider us officially addicted to making actual differences in people's lives," Wesley added with a genuine smile I hadn't seen since his college days. A man I recognized from Wesley's recovery group stepped forward, his expression serious. "Your brother literally saved my life. I had lost everything to gambling: my business, my home, my family's trust. I was contemplating ending it all when Wesley talked me through that darkness, showed me there could be another way forward." Maria embraced Natalie warmly. "I start management training next week. All 3 of my children are thriving in their new school. We have our own apartment with real security. And it all happened because she believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself." One of Ruby's teenage protégés spoke up, her voice gaining confidence with each word. "I haven't used a filter on any of my photos for over 2 months now. For the first time since I was 12, I actually like my real face and what's behind it." A veteran with a prosthetic leg clapped my father on the shoulder affectionately. This old warhorse reminded us that we still have tremendous value to offer. "We're not forgotten soldiers anymore, we're mentors, teachers, builders." I felt unexpected tears welling up as person after person stepped forward, each sharing a story about how my family members had profoundly impacted their lives through genuine engagement rather than mere financial support. But here's the truly significant development, Natalie said, producing one final document with unmistakable pride. We've established a foundation, all four of us working together as equal partners. The incorporation paperwork was just finalized yesterday. A foundation? I echoed, genuinely astonished. The Campbell Family Foundation for Community Empowerment, Wesley announced, standing taller than I'd seen him in years. We're pooling not just financial resources, but our skills, professional networks, and time, creating something sustainable and meaningful. And here's the incredible part, Ruby added excitedly. We've already secured our first major corporate donation. Kenneth's company is coming in as a founding sponsor. Marcus stepped forward, additional legal documents in hand. So, regarding the trust fund conditions and inheritance distribution. Keep it, Natalie interrupted decisively. All of it. Transfer the entire amount to the foundation's endowment. Are you absolutely certain about this? I asked, looking intently at each of them. That's several $1 million you're walking away from. Money we didn't earn, my father stated with quiet dignity. Money we no longer need. We've found something infinitely more valuable. Besides, Wesley laughed, we're all generating our own income streams now. Natalie's launching a specialized job placement program for women in transition. I'm consulting for financial literacy initiatives. Ruby's developing a youth mentoring certification curriculum, and Dad's creating a veterans business incubator. He finished proudly. Turns out retirement was profoundly boring anyway. Paige, who had been quietly filming the entire gathering for the foundation's promotional materials, finally spoke. So, Morgan, still think your hospital bed ultimatum was excessively harsh? I surveyed the room, taking in my transformed family, the lives they'd touched, the community they'd built from nothing but commitment and care. I had intended to teach them a lesson about financial independence. Instead, they had taught me something profound about purpose and connection. You actually gave us the greatest gift possible, Natalie said, embracing me with genuine warmth. A much-needed kick in our collective rear ends that we desperately required but would never have sought ourselves. The most effective revenge, Wesley reflected thoughtfully, isn't punishment at all, it's creating the conditions where people evolve into better versions of themselves than anyone could have anticipated, even if we resented you fiercely at first. More than fiercely, my father corrected, enveloping me in a bear hug that felt unfamiliar yet deeply right. But that's what truly good parents do, isn't it? They push their children toward their better selves, even when it's painful. You did for us exactly what your mother would have done if she'd lived to see what we'd become. The celebration continued vibrating around us, people connecting, sharing stories, building plans for future collaboration. My family members moved through the gathering with newfound confidence and authentic purpose, no longer seeking external validation through money or status symbols. So, Marcus said quietly, discreetly holding up the trust fund distribution papers, what should I actually do with these documents now? I watched Natalie comforting a newly arrived shelter resident with genuine empathy, Wesley patiently explaining budgeting principles to a young man fresh from addiction treatment, Ruby guiding a painfully shy teenager through sharing her artwork, and my father exchanging stories with fellow veterans not as war tales but as bridges to healing. Shred them, I said with absolute certainty. They don't need my money anymore. They've discovered their own form of wealth. The foundation gala, the crisp autumn breeze carried laughter and conversation from the shelter's courtyard, where my father and his veteran volunteers efficiently arranged tables for the foundation's inaugural fundraising gala. Natalie moved purposefully through the space, clipboard in hand, directing caterers and volunteers with the same focused intensity she had once reserved exclusively for sample sales and Fashion Week preparations. "The mayor just confirmed his attendance," she announced, pausing momentarily beside me, "along with 3 city council members and the county commissioner. Remember when you used to get this excited about exclusive designer previews?" I teased gently. She rolled her eyes, though her smile remained. "Please don't remind me. Maria's coordinating the guest list and seating arrangements, by the way. She has an extraordinary talent for organizational management." Speaking of extraordinary, Wesley called out, jogging toward us with his phone extended. The online donation platform just crossed into 6 figures. The charity gaming tournament exceeded every projected target. Inside the main hall, Ruby and her teenage mentor were applying final touches to a powerful art installation. Photographs and written narratives documenting lives transformed through the Foundation's various initiatives. No artificial enhancements, no contrived staging, just authentic human experience captured with dignity. "Look at this transformation," Paige commented, filming as several teens emerged from the shelter's new career closet dressed in professional attire. "They'll be serving as hosts tonight, sharing their journeys directly with potential donors and partners. My daughter has her first real job interview tomorrow," Maria informed me proudly, adjusting her eldest child's blazer with maternal care. "Natalie's been coaching her on interview techniques for weeks." The shelter director drew me aside, visible emotion in her eyes. "When your family first started volunteering here, I honestly assumed it was just wealthy people doing performative community service to ease their consciences. I've never been happier to have my cynicism proven completely wrong." My father appeared, looking distinguished in his tailored suit. The veterans brought additional seating, though between us, he lowered his voice conspiratorially, "I suspect they're primarily here for the catering. Significantly better than military rations." This prompted a good-natured shout of agreement from a nearby veteran, generating laughter throughout the room. Marcus and Kenneth arrived early, carrying boxes of professionally designed promotional materials for the Foundation. "Wait until you see the documentary Paige has compiled," Marcus told me. "There won't be a single dry eye in the venue." As twilight descended and guests began arriving, I observed my family members in their element. Natalie introduced Maria to potential employers, her networking prowess now directed toward creating opportunities rather than seeking status. Wesley shared evidence-based success stories from his financial recovery program. Ruby's teenage artists proudly guided visitors through their exhibition. My father stood surrounded by veterans, explaining their entrepreneurship mentorship program to impressed investors. "These men and women sacrificed everything for our country," he stated with quiet conviction. "The least we can do is help them rebuild meaningful civilian lives." "Quite a remarkable evolution from the family that used to treat you like their personal bank," Paige observed, capturing the scene with her camera. Before I could respond, the mayor approached the microphone. "In my 20 years of public service, I've encountered countless community initiatives, but the Campbell Family Foundation represents something truly unique. It's not merely about throwing financial resources at problems, it's about personal investment in creating transformation from within communities themselves." Natalie took the stage next, her public speaking skills now employed for genuine impact. "6 months ago, my sister Morgan taught us an incredibly difficult lesson about privilege and responsibility. She forced us to confront our failures and discover purpose beyond wealth accumulation. Tonight, we're not seeking donations, we're offering partnership in changing actual lives." Wesley followed with compelling data about their collective impact: jobs created, housing secured, addictions overcome, financial independence established. Ruby's Mints shared powerful testimonials about their journeys from insecurity to genuine confidence. My father introduced veterans who had launched successful businesses with the center's support. None of this transformation would have been possible, Natalie concluded, her voice resonating with authentic emotion, if our sister hadn't possessed the courage to push us off our comfortable pedestals. We initially believed she was punishing us. Instead, she offered us the most valuable gift imaginable, the opportunity to become better human beings. The applause was thunderous, donations exceeded projections, but what moved me most profoundly was watching my family throughout the evening, Natalie mentoring Maria's daughter with genuine investment, Wesley counseling a young man fighting gambling urges, Ruby encouraging a painfully shy teenager to share her artwork, my father proudly introducing his veteran protégés to potential business partners. Epilogue: as the evening wound down, we gathered in the children's playroom we had renovated together months earlier, the space where our collective transformation had truly begun. Remember when we thought all this was just about claiming our inheritance? Wesley laughed, shaking his head at the memory. Remember how much we resented Morgan for manipulating us into these commitments? Ruby added, her expression softer now. Remember when we genuinely believed financial wealth was the only meaningful measure of success? Natalie reflected with newfound wisdom in her voice. My father pulled me into a tight embrace, his military rigidity giving way to genuine emotion. Remember when I had the audacity to claim your mother would be ashamed of your actions? I couldn't have been more wrong. She's probably looking down right now with that knowing smile of hers, saying, I tried to tell you all along. Paige lowered her camera, the documentary footage complete. So, looking back now, was it truly worth it? The hospital collapse, the tough love intervention, the very real risk of permanently fracturing your family relationships? I surveyed the room thoughtfully. Natalie and Maria huddled over a laptop planning their next employment workshop, Wesley patiently explaining budget strategies to recently housed shelter residents, Ruby deleting the last vestiges of her carefully curated social media presence, my father finally embodying the authentic leadership he'd been trained for rather than merely commanding obedience. I didn't lose my family through this process, I replied with absolute certainty. I found them, their authentic selves. And they found themselves. We all did. Because sometimes the most profound act of love isn't giving people what they want or what makes them temporarily comfortable, it's having the courage to give them what they truly need to become who they're truly meant to be. And sometimes the most satisfying form of justice isn't punishment or retribution at all, it's witnessing that remarkable transformation unfold before your eyes, one changed life at a time. The first sign that my life was about to implode came during a charity dinner for Healing Hands. I stood across the elegantly decorated ballroom, my heart pounding against my ribs as I watched my mother pull my husband aside. Their heads bent close together like conspirators sharing secrets, the chandelier light glinting off Vivian's diamond earrings as her perfectly manicured hand rested on Elliot's arm. Her smile was too bright, too knowing, and my stomach twisted with dread. I'm Harlow Mitchell, and until that moment, I thought I had the perfect life, a fulfilling career managing Horizon Care, a loving husband, a beautiful home in the suburbs. But sometimes the things we think we know best are the ones that blind us the most completely. They've been awfully cozy lately, haven't they? Nora appeared beside me, wine glass in hand, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. My best friend had always been more perceptive than me when it came to family dynamics, her journalist's instinct for trouble finely tuned. I don't like the way she keeps glancing at her phone. Mom's always loved Elliot, I said, but the words felt hollow, scraping my throat like broken glass. Something had shifted in recent weeks, subtle glances between them, hushed phone calls that ended when I entered the room, my mother's increasingly frequent mentions of Madison, Elliot's college sweetheart, who now ran some medical NGO my mother practically worshipped. Harlow, sweetie, my mother's voice cut through my thoughts like a surgical blade. Come here, darling. Elliot and I were just discussing the most fascinating development. I crossed the ballroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. The pearls at my throat felt suddenly tight, choking. Up close, I could see the slight flush creeping up Elliot's neck, the same telltale redness he got when he was hiding something important. What's fascinating, Mom? I kept my voice light, casual, even as my heart hammered painfully. Oh, just catching up about recent developments, you know. Madison's expanding her NGO work. She smoothed her already perfectly coiffed silver hair. Did Elliot mention that? My stomach dropped to my feet, leaving a hollow ache in its place. No, he didn't. She's doing amazingly well, my mother continued, her eyes gleaming with pride that she'd never shown for my work. Making real contributions to medical access in underserved communities. You remember how passionate she always was about healthcare. Elliot wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stood there, shifting his weight from one foot to the other like a guilty teenager, his fingers nervously adjusting his tie. That night, after the charity event, I confronted him in our kitchen. The dishes from dinner sat unwashed in the sink, something that would normally drive me crazy, but suddenly seemed trivially unimportant compared to the heavy dread weighing on my chest. What's going on with you and my mother? I asked, watching him carefully, searching his face for traces of the man I thought I'd married. Nothing's going on, he said, but his voice wavered like a patient's heart monitor before flatline. Vivian's just being friendly, connecting medical professionals. Networking stuff. Friendly enough to arrange secret meetings with Madison? His head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. How did you? I didn't, until now. My fingers gripped the kitchen counter so hard my knuckles turned white, pain shooting through my hands. How long has this been going on behind my back? Harlow, it's not what you think. His eyes darted around the room, looking everywhere but at me. Then what is it, Elliot? Because from where I'm standing, with my heart breaking in my chest, it looks like my mother is playing matchmaker with my husband and his ex-girlfriend. He ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I used to find endearing but now made my stomach churn with disgust. Your mother, she just thinks maybe we rushed into marriage. That maybe we should have explored other options. She thinks someone in the medical field would understand my ambitions better. We've been married for 5 years, my voice cracked, tears burning behind my eyes. 5 years, Elliot. And now my own mother is trying to set you up with Madison? The real healthcare professional? I've been thinking, he paused, and in that pause, I heard the death of our marriage echoing in the silence between us. Maybe she's right. Maybe we did rush things. Maybe I need someone who understands the medical world better. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm, the walls closing in around me. Have you seen her? Madison? His silence was answer enough, hitting me like a physical blow. Get out, I whispered, my voice trembling with rage and heartbreak. Just get out of our home. Harlow, I said, get out. I grabbed a coffee mug from the counter and hurled it at the wall with all the force of my betrayal. It shattered loudly, sending ceramic shards skittering across the floor like the broken pieces of my life. Elliot jumped, finally showing some emotion other than guilty indecision, his face pale with shock. I'll stay at my parents' tonight, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. We can talk tomorrow, when we're both calmer. This isn't how I wanted this to happen. I watched him grab his keys and wallet, listened to his footsteps fade away down the hallway, heard the front door close with a decisive click that seemed to seal the end of everything. Only then did I allow myself to sink to the floor, my back against the kitchen cabinets, sobs tearing from my throat. My phone buzzed, a WhatsApp message from my mother. "I hope you're not too upset, darling. Sometimes these things happen for the best." Madison was always such a perfect match for him, with her medical background. "You'll find someone more suited to your interests." I stared at the message until the words blurred through my tears. Then, with trembling fingers, I typed out a response: "You've made your choice, Mom. Now I'll make mine." Blocking her number felt like cutting off a limb, but I did it anyway, a pain that was almost sweet in its finality. Then I called Nora. "I need you to come over," I said when she answered, my voice raw and broken, "and bring wine. Lots of wine. The expensive kind." "I'm already on my way," she replied without hesitation, genuine concern warming her voice. "What happened? Are you okay? You sound like you've been crying." "My mother happened," I said, looking at the broken mug on the floor, the shards glinting under the kitchen lights like my shattered trust. "But they have no idea who they're dealing with. No idea at all." As I waited for Nora, I made a silent vow to myself, anger slowly replacing the hollow ache in my chest. They thought they could break me, reshape my life to fit their perfect little narrative of what a healthcare family should look like. But I would show them all exactly what Harlow Mitchell was capable of. And I would make every single one of them regret the day they decided I wasn't enough. 3 days after Elliot left, I was staring blankly at my computer screen when Dominic knocked on my office door. My consultant colleague's usual confident stride was replaced with an almost nervous energy as he approached my desk, his normally pristine shirt showing small wrinkles of concern. "You look like hell," he said, dropping into the chair across from me, his eyes taking in my disheveled appearance with genuine worry. "Thanks. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear after her life implodes." I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace, my face stiff from crying. "I'm guessing you heard about Elliot." Dominic leaned forward, compassion softening his usually businesslike demeanor. "News travels fast in healthcare circles. I'm sorry, Harlow. Truly. Don't be. Apparently, my marriage was doomed from the start, if you ask my mother." I clicked aimlessly through some patient care reports, the numbers blurring before my tired eyes. "Did you know she kept all of Elliot and Madison's college photos? She displayed them at every family gathering, calling them the healthcare power couple. I was just too blind to see what was happening right in front of me." "Your mother sounds like a piece of work." Dominic's voice hardened with disapproval. "You have no idea." I rubbed my temples, a headache forming behind my eyes. "Last Nurses Appreciation Week, she gave Elliot a leather-bound collection of medical journal articles Madison had published, called it Inspiration. I called it calculated sabotage." Dominic shifted in his seat, then pulled out his tablet, his fingers hesitating over the screen. "Listen, I came here to show you something. Maybe it's bad timing, but..." He paused, tapping the screen with purpose. "Remember that revolutionary elder care model we discussed last year? The one the hospital board dismissed as too ambitious? What about it?" My interest flickered weakly, the first spark of anything besides pain in days. "I've been doing some research and consulting. The landscape has changed. Look at these patient outcome statistics." He turned the tablet toward me, showing graphs and projections, his finger tracing the upward trends. We were ahead of our time then, but now the demand for dignified, innovative elder care is exploding, especially after all those nursing home scandals hit the news. For the first time in days, something other than betrayal occupied my mind, pushing past the fog of heartbreak. These impact projections are incredible. The quality of life improvements alone. That's not all. Dominic's eyes lit up with barely contained excitement. Remember Tessa Blackwood? She's interested in backing us if we want to pursue this independently. She specifically asked about you. Tessa? I sat up straighter, my spine tingling with surprise. The same Tessa who told us our original concept was idealistic nonsense? She's seen the industry shifts, plus your reputation as an innovative care provider has grown significantly since then. He leaned back, watching me carefully, gauging my reaction. This could be huge, Harlow. We're talking about revolutionizing elder care across the country, not just in our city. My phone buzzed, another WhatsApp message from Elliot, probably some pathetic excuse while he packed more of his things from our house. I turned it face down with a decisive thump. When do we meet with Tessa? Dominic blinked, clearly surprised by my immediate interest. You want to do this now? With everything that's happening? Why not now? I stood up, energy surging through me as I paced behind my desk, my heartbeat quickening with purpose. My husband's leaving me for his college sweetheart, orchestrated by my own mother who thinks I'm a healthcare industry disappointment. I need something meaningful to focus on besides their betrayal. This won't be easy, Dominic warned, concern creasing his forehead. We'd be starting from scratch, building everything from the ground up, fighting industry inertia every step of the way. Good. I stopped pacing, my hands planted firmly on my desk as determination flooded through me. I need something impossible to accomplish, something they'd never believe I could do. Just then, Nora burst into my office, her face flushed with indignation, her journalist's notebook clutched in one hand. Harlow, you need to see this right now. She thrust her phone at me, finger jabbing at the screen. On the screen was an Instagram post from Madison's Healing Hands account. My mother, Elliot, and Madison at some upscale medical charity gala, all smiles and champagne toasts with the caption excited to welcome our newest medical advisor to the team. Family connections make our work possible. Hashtag medical excellence, hashtag family first, already making it public? I said, my voice flat as ice while my stomach twisted with humiliation. Subtle, Mom. Real subtle. I'll destroy them all in print. Nora declared, snatching her phone back, her journalist's eyes blazing with righteous fury. Just one exposé on medical nepotism. No, I said, looking at Dominic with newfound resolve. I have a better idea. I turned back to Nora. How would you like to help us build something truly revolutionary in elder care? Something that would make real, meaningful change? Us? Nora looked between Dominic and me, confusion replacing anger. What are you talking about? Dominic just showed me an opportunity that could change everything in elder care, but we'll need your media expertise and healthcare journalism connections to spread the word properly. Dominic pulled up the project details again on his tablet, and for the next hour, we planned intensely. With each concept we discussed, each possibility we explored, I felt my strength returning, my purpose clarifying. The pain was still throbbing in my chest, but now it had direction, transforming from a crushing weight into fuel for something meaningful. As they were leaving my office, Dominic turned back, his hand resting on the doorframe. You sure about this, Harlow? It's a massive undertaking, especially now. You know what my mother said when I told her I was marrying Elliot? I asked, gathering my things, my hands trembling slightly with renewed purpose. She said I was settling for less than I deserved in the healthcare field. Turns out she was right, just not in the way she meant. Where are you going? Nora asked, concern etched across her face as I grabbed my bag. To see Tessa, I replied, snatching my coat from the rack. Time to show them all exactly what kind of care provider I really am. As I drove to Tessa's office, my mother's words from countless family dinners echoed painfully in my head. Madison always had such dedication to medical outreach, such healthcare vision. The memory stung like antiseptic on an open wound, but it also fueled my determination like oxygen to a flame. They thought they knew what medical commitment looked like. They hadn't seen anything yet. I parked outside Tessa's sleek downtown building, checking my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were tired but blazing with purpose. Game on, I whispered to myself, grabbing my presentation folder. It was time to build something more meaningful than their betrayal. The care model designs look revolutionary, Tessa said, examining the blueprints and care protocols spread across her glass desk. 2 weeks had passed since our first meeting, and we'd been working around the clock, my exhaustion masked by growing excitement. But what about the financial sustainability analysis? I pulled out another document, my confidence growing with each page. We've found ways to reduce operational costs by 30% using innovative staffing models and preventative care approaches. Dominic's connections in the medical equipment industry are proving invaluable for discounted supplies. And for locations? We've identified 3 potential sites. I pointed to the map with steady fingers. This one's our favorite, the former Sanders Clinic. Perfect for renovation, accessible to underserved communities, and the state's offering healthcare initiative grants for development. Tessa nodded slowly, her silver hair catching the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. You've thought this through impressively. But tell me, Harlow, why now? Why this sudden passion? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a WhatsApp notification, another message from my mother, family dinner tonight. Madison's making her famous organic pasta. Please come, darling. Let's be adults about this healthcare situation. I turned the phone face down with a decisive click. Because it's time to create elder care that truly matters, I said, my voice steady with conviction. This wouldn't have anything to do with your personal situation, would it? Tessa's shrewd eyes studied my face. Does it matter? I met her gaze unflinchingly. You taught me yourself in that healthcare leadership seminar last year. Motivation is irrelevant if the care model is sound and patient-centered. She smiled, a rare sight that transformed her typically stern face. True. Very well. I'm in. Full financial backing as discussed. Don't make me regret this investment. That evening, I was reviewing staffing models with Dominic when Nora burst into the office, waving her phone, her journalist's eyes wide with indignation. You won't believe this shameless display. Your mother just posted on Instagram that Elliot and Madison are moving in together, in that medical professionals community near the university hospital. Dominic winced. That's deliberately cruel. I kept my eyes firmly on the staffing documents, refusing to let them see the pain that shot through my chest. Let them play healthcare power couple. We have real lives to improve. But Harlow, the patient satisfaction survey results just came in. I interrupted, sliding a document toward Nora. We need a media piece ready for the medical journal by Monday. This could change how people view elder care. Nora sighed, but took the paper. Fine, but you can't avoid confronting them forever. Watch me save lives instead, I replied, turning back to the care protocols. The next morning, I arrived early at our pilot facility site. Contractors were already setting up, preparing for the launch ceremony next month. Dominic was there, blueprints in hand, looking surprised at my early appearance. You're here at dawn, he said, handing me a coffee, steam rising in the cool morning air. Couldn't sleep, might as well be productive. I took a grateful sip, the warmth spreading through my chilled body. The medical equipment supplier called. Everything's coming in under budget. That's not why you're here before sunrise, he said gently. I watched a construction crew installing the facilities sign. Elliot came by the house yesterday, wanted to talk about dividing our assets. What did you say? Nothing. I let him stand there knocking while I worked on our patient care presentation in the kitchen. I smiled grimly, guilt mingling with satisfaction. Petty, maybe. Necessary for my sanity, definitely. Harlow. A familiar voice made my stomach clench. My mother was walking toward us, designer heels completely inappropriate for a construction site, sinking slightly into the soft ground. Mom? What are you doing here? You won't answer my calls or messages. I had to track you down. She looked around disdainfully at the construction. What is all this commotion? This is my new project, a revolutionary elder care facility, I said, straightening my shoulders. Elder care? She laughed dismissively. Darling, you manage a basic care home. This looks ambitious. Managed, I corrected, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I'm developing this new care model now, with Dominic and Tessa Blackwood's backing. Her smile faltered, recognition flashing in her eyes. Tessa Blackwood? The healthcare venture capitalist? The same. I checked my watch pointedly. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a meeting with the medical director candidates. Harlow, don't be childish. Come to dinner tonight. Madison's been worried about you. She thinks your expertise could be valuable to her NGO. I'm sure she does. I turned to Dominic. The doctors are waiting. Harlow. Goodbye, Mom. As we walked away, Dominic whispered, that was intense. You okay? Just wait until the grand opening ceremony. We're inviting every healthcare journalist in the region. You think I'm going to make them watch my success? No, I smiled, determination hardening within me. I'm going to make them part of it. Nothing stings more than being forced to acknowledge the success of someone you tried to diminish. That evening, I sat in my temporary office looking at the 3D renderings of our care facility. My phone lit up with a WhatsApp message from Elliot. Vivian says you're working on some big healthcare project. Why didn't you tell me about it? I typed back, my fingers steady despite my anger. You lost the right to know about my work when you chose my mother's medical fantasy over our reality. His response came quickly. It wasn't like that. I was confused about my path. No, I wrote, the truth crystallizing as I typed, you were weak. But thanks for that. Your weakness is fueling something extraordinary for people who truly need care. I blocked his number before he could respond, then called Nora. Remember that idea you had about featuring elder care success stories in your medical journal series? Yeah, she answered, interest peaking in her voice. Let's do it, but let's make it bigger. I want feature stories, medical conference presentations, social media campaigns, the works. Show everyone what's possible in elder care when you refuse to accept the status quo. Now you're speaking my language, she said, excitement building. Want me to make sure they're visible in all the medical journals your mother subscribes to? I thought about my mother's perfectly organized home office, about Elliot and Madison playing healthcare power couple nearby. Make sure they see it everywhere they turn. Every medical conference, every journal, every healthcare website. The day Elliot officially moved out was the same day our project made the local medical news. I watched from my kitchen window as he loaded the last of his boxes into his SUV, while the Healthcare Today report played on my tablet. A revolutionary approach to elder care, the reporter was saying. The Future Care Initiative promises to transform the region's approach to dignified aging and family support. The car's engine started up just as my doorbell rang, sending my heart racing. I opened it to find Madison standing there, looking perfectly put together in an expensive blouse with her NGO's logo, her makeup flawless despite the early hour. I thought I should help him move the medical books, she said, as if this was completely normal. We need to talk, Harlow. No, we really don't. I moved to close the door, but she blocked it with her foot, her designer shoe wedging into the doorframe. Your mother's worried about you. All this ambitious work stuff, the complete silence in the family chat, it's not healthy for someone in your position. I laughed, the sound harsh and brittle even to my own ears. My mother's worried? That's rich. Tell me, Madison, did she plan your reunion with Elliot before or after that medical conference you both attended during our anniversary weekend? She had the grace to look uncomfortable, her perfect posture faltering slightly. It wasn't planned like that. These connections just happen in the medical community. These connections just happen? I stepped onto the porch, anger propelling me forward, forcing her to back up. Like the charity gala she organized where she just happened to seat you next to Elliot? The medical school photos she kept displaying? The late-night professional consultations? Vivian was just trying to what exactly? Help her daughter's husband explore other options? Create the perfect little medical power couple she always fantasized about? You're being dramatic, Madison said, but her voice wavered, her confidence cracking. We can all be professional about this situation. My phone buzzed loudly. Dominic calling. I answered it deliberately, maintaining steady eye contact with Madison. The medical investors are here early, he said, his voice excited. They want to discuss expanding the care model to other states. I'll be there in 20. I hung up and turned back to Madison, newfound confidence surging through me. You know what's funny? For years, I tried desperately to live up to this perfect medical professional image my mother had of you. Now I realize it was the best favor she could have possibly done me. What do you mean? Madison's perfect forehead wrinkled with confusion. She made me stop trying to be you and start being myself, someone who actually cares about patients more than image. I gestured to the car where Elliot was watching us anxiously. He's all yours. Hope you both enjoy my mother's version of healthcare success. I grabbed my laptop bag and car keys, walking past them without another glance. In my rearview mirror, I watched them standing in my driveway, looking lost and small in the bright morning sunshine. At our temporary office, Dominic was waiting with Tessa and a group of healthcare investors. The excitement was electric as we went through the presentation of our care model. The healthcare community response has been overwhelming, Nora reported, pulling up the analytics on her laptop. Medical directors from 3 states are already asking about implementation timelines. And the patient outcome projections are exceeding all standard benchmarks, Dominic added, his voice proud. We're setting new standards for elder care that prioritizes dignity and family involvement. Halfway through the meeting, my phone lit up with a WhatsApp message from my mother. Just helped Elliot and Madison set up their medical library in their new condo. Stop this foolish project and come see their beautiful place. Healthcare families should support each other. I showed the message to Nora during our coffee break, my hands shaking slightly. The absolute nerve of that woman, she muttered, righteous indignation flashing in her eyes. Want me to accidentally send her our medical journal coverage? No need, I smiled, a plan forming. She'll see it soon enough. The feature article comes out tomorrow in the medical journal she reads religiously every month. That evening as I was leaving the office, I found Elliot waiting beside my car, his medical equipment sales bag slung over his shoulder. Nice news coverage, he said, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. Why didn't you ever tell me you wanted to revolutionize elder care like this? I did, Elliot. Multiple times. You were too busy listening to my mother's stories about Madison's global health initiatives to actually hear anything I said about my passion. That's not fair to me. No, what's not fair is having to compete with a healthcare fantasy my mother created and nurtured. I unlocked my car, the beep cutting through the tension. How's the new place in the medical professionals community? It's different. He shifted uncomfortably, not meeting my eyes. Vivian's been helping us decorate with medical-themed artwork. Of course she has. I opened the car door, creating a barrier between us. You know what the truly sad thing is, Elliot? I actually feel sorry for you both. What's that supposed to mean? His face flushed with indignation. You'll never live up to her perfect medical fantasy. And when you inevitably fail, she'll find someone else to cast in her little healthcare drama. I got into the car, my heart pounding but my voice steady. But by then, I'll be too busy changing people's lives to care. As I drove away, I caught his reflection in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking lot, looking smaller somehow. My phone buzzed with another WhatsApp notification from my mother, but I didn't bother to read it. Tomorrow my interview would be featured in the leading healthcare journal, highlighting our innovative approach to elder care. Let them see exactly what their betrayal had inspired. I turned up the radio, drowning out thoughts of them playing perfect medical power couple in their new condo. They had no idea what was coming next, and that knowledge felt like a warm current flowing through my veins. Crisis point, we have a serious problem. Dominic burst into my office, his normally composed face pale with concern. The patient safety inspection found something we missed. There's been a complaint of elder abuse in the east wing of our pilot facility. I looked up from my laptop, my blood running cold. How bad? Bad enough to potentially halt the entire project. The investigation and reputation management could cost hundreds of thousands we haven't budgeted for. My stomach dropped like an elevator in freefall, but I kept my voice steady. Get everyone in the conference room immediately. This is all hands on deck. Within 15 minutes, our core team was assembled around the table. Nora was already working her phone, contacting her media connections to get ahead of any potential publicity disaster. Tessa sat at the head of the table, her expression as unreadable as a veteran surgeon's. Show me the details of the complaint, she said, her voice calm but authoritative. I pulled up the confidential report on the screen, my hand steady despite my racing heart. The complaint is isolated to one staff member who worked in about 20% of the facility. Initial estimates for legal consultation and potential settlement are looking at $300,000 minimum. That's not in the budget, one of the junior healthcare consultants said, shaking his head. We should consider suspending operations until this blows over. Absolutely not. I stood up forcefully, pointing to the facility layouts. Look, if we reorganize the staffing model, shift the affected patients to our most experienced care providers, and turn this incident into a teaching opportunity with enhanced training. That's still $300,000 we don't have immediately available, Dominic interrupted, concern etched across his face. I'll cover it, I said quietly, my decision already made. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. Harlow, Nora started, genuine concern in her eyes. That's your entire personal savings, and the house sale money. I know exactly what it is. I met Tessa's analytical gaze steadily. I'm all in on this project. Are you still with me? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed loudly, a WhatsApp message from my mother displayed on the screen. Darling, heard about the abuse allegations at your facility. Perhaps this is a sign to abandon this misguided venture. Elliot says his medical device company has an opening in marketing. I switched off the phone with a decisive click. Well, Tessa stood slowly, her decision clearly made. Match her investment, she told the room, looking at each team member in turn. I want everyone who truly believes in this care model to put their money where their mouth is. Harlow's right. We're not stopping now. The next few hours were a blur of calls, legal consultations, and financial commitments. By evening, we had the crisis funding secured, but the stress had left its mark on all of us. I sat alone in my temporary office, staring at the city lights when Nora walked in carrying 2 glasses of wine. "Your mother's been messaging me," she said, handing me a glass. "Apparently, Madison's NGO is struggling with funding. She suggested maybe you could help out, for the sake of healthcare progress." I took a long, needed sip of wine. The NGO was my mother's pet project idea, wasn't it? Yep. She convinced Madison to leave her stable hospital position and follow her humanitarian calling. Nora made exaggerated air quotes, rolling her eyes. "Just like she convinced Elliot that your career focus on elder care was beneath his potential." "How do you know all this?" Medical community gossip travels fast. She perched on the edge of my desk, especially when Madison's NGO is hemorrhaging donor money with nothing to show for it, and Elliot's realizing that idealism doesn't pay the mortgage on that fancy condo. A knock at the door interrupted us. Dominic entered, followed by Tessa. "The staff has agreed to our new training protocol," Dominic said, his relief evident, "and Nora's media team has a plan to turn this into a positive story about transparency and continuous improvement in elder care." Good. I stood up, energy returning despite my exhaustion. Because we're not just fixing this issue, we're going to make our care model even better than before. "That's exactly why I backed you," Tessa said, a rare smile softening her features. "You don't collapse under pressure, you adapt and improve." Speaking of improvements, Nora pulled out her tablet with a glint in her eye. "Wait until you see the new feature article I've drafted. It's being published next week, right when the medical conference begins where Madison is scheduled to speak." "Nora," I warned, though I couldn't completely suppress my interest. "What?" "Pure coincidence," she grinned mischievously, "just like it's a coincidence that our elder care education program is hosting workshops at the hospital where your mother sits on the board." "Focus on the patients," I said firmly, but I couldn't help smiling slightly. "We have real healthcare transformation to accomplish." Later that night, as I was leaving the office, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. Elliot's distinctive doctor-like handwriting. "I heard about the abuse allegation issues. Maybe we should talk about it. I miss your perspective." I crumpled the note in my fist and pulled out my phone, calling Dominic immediately. "Remember that proposal about adding a specialized memory care unit to our facility?" I asked when he answered. "Let's do it. But not just any standard unit. I want something so innovative, so patient-centered that it will make Madison's little NGO look like a high school science project." "Now you're just being vindictive," he said, but I could hear the smile in his voice. "No, I'm being visionary. My mother wanted to create her perfect healthcare narrative with her perfect medical couple. Fine. I'm writing my own story, and it's going to improve more lives than anything she could have possibly imagined." I drove home past my mother's house, where lights blazed in every window. Through the glass, I could see them all, Mom, Elliot, and Madison sitting around the dinner table like some twisted medical family portrait. Let them have their charity galas and struggling NGO. I had vulnerable seniors' lives to transform, and their perfect little medical world was about to become very, very insignificant in comparison. 6 months later, the invitation arrived in my email with an attachment of fancy digital stationery, my mother's signature flair for appearance over substance. A professional celebration, it read, announcing a dinner event to welcome Madison officially into the Mitchell medical legacy. 6 months had passed since Elliot left, and my mother still couldn't resist twisting the knife deeper. "You're not actually attending this farce, are you?" Nora asked when I forwarded it to her, disbelief evident in her voice. "Oh, I'm definitely going." I checked my phone, where Dominic had just sent confirmation of our latest success, and I'm bringing distinguished guests. The night of the dinner, I arrived fashionably late, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than Madison's monthly NGO salary. Dominic and Tessa flanked me as we walked in, creating an immediate power shift in the room. "Harlow." My mother's polished smile faltered visibly when she saw my companions. "I wasn't expecting you to bring anyone to our intimate family gathering." "Mother, you remember Dominic right, and of course, you recognize Tessa Blackwood." My mother's eyes widened at Tessa's name. "The healthcare venture capitalist, but, Vivian," Tessa said smoothly, extending her hand, "your daughter has become quite the revolutionary force in elder care. Surely you've been following her remarkable success." Before my mother could formulate a response, Elliot appeared with Madison. He stopped short when he saw me, his eyes lingering on my confident posture. "Harlow," Madison said, her voice overly bright but strained, "we've missed your input at the healthcare roundtables." "Been occupied," I replied, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server, "improving actual patients' lives." "Yes, well," my mother clapped her hands, transparently eager to regain control. "Shall we move to the dining room? I've prepared all of Madison's favorite organic dishes." The dinner unfolded exactly as I anticipated, my mother lavishing praise on Madison's minimal accomplishments while shooting concerned glances my way. But tonight, I held all the cards. "So, Madison," Tessa said during the main course, her voice carrying the authority of decades in healthcare, "I hear nonprofit funding has been particularly challenging lately." Madison pushed her quinoa around her plate nervously. "It's just a transitional funding period." Speaking of transitions, Dominic cut in, right on cue. "Harlow, shall we share our exciting development?" My mother's fork clattered loudly against her fine china. "Development?" I took a deliberate sip of wine, savoring the moment. "The Future Care Project has been so successful, we're expanding to 3 new locations across the country, including a specialized research and innovation center." "Research center?" Madison's head snapped up, unable to hide her interest. "State-of-the-art laboratories, clinical training facilities, geriatric medicine fellowships," I continued, warming to my subject. "We're revolutionizing how elder care is approached nationwide. In fact, Tessa just secured the additional funding this morning." "This morning?" My mother's voice had gone faint. "But that must be millions of dollars." "25 million, to be exact," Tessa said casually, as if discussing pocket change. "Your daughter is quite the healthcare visionary, Vivian. The Surgeon General's office is already calling it a potential model for national implementation." I watched Elliot's face as he processed the numbers. He worked in medical sales. He knew exactly what this level of funding meant for a healthcare initiative. "But that's," as Madison started, her voice faltering. "More than your NGO's 5-year operational budget," I finished for her, the facts speaking for themselves. "Yes, it certainly is." My mother stood abruptly, composure slipping. "I need to check on the gluten-free dessert options." "Let me help," I said, following her into the kitchen. She was gripping the granite counter when I entered, knuckles white with tension. "Was this display necessary, Harlow? Bringing them here? Flaunting your success so blatantly?" "Necessary? No. Deeply satisfying? Absolutely." I leaned against the doorframe, feeling strangely calm. You spent years trying to make me feel inferior, Mom, pushing Elliot toward Madison, undermining every career choice I made in elder care. I was trying to guide you toward something more prestigious. You were trying to control my life, to create your perfect medical family story. Well, guess what? My actual impact on healthcare is bigger than anything you could have scripted for me. Harlow, the research center, I cut her off. We're already receiving applications from leading geriatric specialists nationwide. Funny how your perfect couple's struggling little NGO seems rather insignificant in comparison to actual systemic change. Back in the dining room, Elliot was engaged in intense conversation with Dominic about potential equipment partnerships. Madison sat silent, pushing her dessert around her plate. Everything all right? Tessa asked them pointedly. You both seem unusually quiet. Fine, Madison said quickly, her voice tight, just a lot to process professionally. I agreed, sitting back down. But isn't that what these family gatherings are for? Sharing important developments? My mother returned, her perfect hostess mask noticeably cracked. More organic wine, anyone? Actually, we should go. I stood, gathering my things with deliberate calm. Early meeting tomorrow with the National Council on Aging. We're presenting our research center's first wave of clinical trials. I'll walk you out, Elliot said suddenly, surprising everyone. At the door, he touched my arm hesitantly. Harlow, I pulled away firmly. You made your choice, Elliot. Now you get to live with the consequences. As we drove away, Dominic laughed softly. That was more satisfying than any medical drama I've ever watched. It wasn't about satisfaction, I said, watching my mother's house disappear in the rearview mirror. It was about showing them all who I really am. Grand opening, but we all knew it was both. The day of our flagship care facility's grand opening dawned bright and clear. I stood at the podium, cameras flashing and medical journalists recording, as I unveiled our revolutionary vision to the healthcare world. The state health director sat to my right, nodding approvingly, while Tessa and Dominic flanked me on the left. This isn't just about another care facility, I told the attentive crowd, my voice steady with conviction. It's about creating spaces where dignity in aging is paramount, where compassionate care and innovation intersect to transform lives. From the corner of my eye, I spotted them, my mother, Elliot, and Madison hovering awkwardly at the back of the gathering. They hadn't been invited, but I knew they'd appear. My mother never could resist a healthcare milestone she might claim some connection to. After the speeches, during the champagne reception, Elliot approached me alone, his sales confidence notably diminished. Impressive, he said, gesturing at the facility models and care protocol displays. Really, genuinely impressive work, Harlow. Where's Madison? I asked, scanning the room filled with healthcare luminaries. Shouldn't she be networking? This is a medical advancement event, after all. He shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his collar. She's taking a break from the NGO. Things haven't been going well with the funding or outcomes. I heard something about major donors redirecting their support to our evidence-based care programs instead. The words weren't meant to wound, just state reality. Before he could respond, Dominic appeared smoothly at my side. Harlow, the representatives from the Mayo Clinic are here. They're interested in implementing our model nationwide. Mayo Clinic? Elliot's eyes widened, professional envy unmistakable. Just the beginning, Dominic said, not bothering to hide his pride in our work. Harlow's approach has become the gold standard in progressive elder care across the country. I excused myself politely, leaving Elliot standing there looking lost. As I worked the room, greeting healthcare leaders and potential partners, I caught glimpses of my mother's face, her practiced smile growing more strained with each dignitary who came to congratulate me. "Your daughter is extraordinary," I overheard the state health director telling her. "She's fundamentally changing how we approach elder care in this country." "Yes," my mother replied tightly, her voice barely audible from where I stood. "She's always been determined." Later, during a quiet moment between presentations, Nora pulled me aside, her journalist's instinct for drama evident. "Madison's having a breakdown in the restroom. Apparently, her final major donor just redirected their $1 million pledge to our research foundation instead." "That's unfortunate," I said, but there was no vindictive pleasure in it. The victory felt different than I'd imagined during those painful nights, not sweet revenge, just the natural consequence of authentic work versus performative caring. "Harlow." My mother's voice came from behind me, softer than usual. "We need to talk." I turned to face her. She looked older somehow, the confident posture diminished, vulnerability showing through her perfect facade. "I'm quite busy with the healthcare officials, Mom." "Please." Her voice cracked slightly, surprising us both. "Just 5 minutes." We stepped onto the balcony overlooking the grounds of the care facility. Construction crews were completing the therapeutic gardens below, the healing spaces taking shape in carefully planned greenery and accessible pathways. "I was wrong," she said quietly, words I'd never expected to hear from her. "About what, specifically? Undermining my marriage, pushing Elliot toward Madison, or just generally trying to dictate my place in healthcare?" "All of it." She gripped the railing, her knuckles white. "I thought I knew what was best. I thought Madison was the perfect match for Elliot, that you were settling for less than you deserved in your career. And now." She paused, emotion constricting her voice. "Now I see that I was the one who didn't recognize your true worth." She turned to me, tears glistening in her eyes. "You've built something extraordinary, Harlow. Something with more impact than I ever imagined possible for elder care." "That's exactly the problem, Mom. You never tried to imagine what I could accomplish on my own terms. You were too busy trying to reshape me into your limited vision of healthcare success." A commotion inside drew our attention. Through the glass doors, I could see Elliot having a heated discussion with Madison, their perfect medical power couple facade cracking under the weight of reality. "They're struggling," my mother admitted with a sigh. "The NGO is failing without tangible results, and Elliot, he's not the healthcare visionary I thought he was." "No," I agreed, feeling oddly compassionate rather than vindictive. "He's exactly who he always was, someone who follows rather than leads. You just couldn't see it through your rose-colored vision of the perfect medical family." Dominic appeared at the door, excitement evident in his expression. "Harlow, the Federal Healthcare Policy Director, is here to meet you." "I have to go," I told my mother, straightening my jacket. Can we try again?" she asked, vulnerability replacing her usual certainty. "To rebuild our relationship?" I looked at her for a long moment, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. "Maybe. But not on your terms anymore. I'm not that person who seeks your approval at any cost." Back inside, I passed Elliot and Madison as they were heading toward the exit. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back slightly. "Harlow, please," he said, regret etched across his face. "I made a terrible mistake." "No, Elliot, you made a deliberate choice. Several choices, actually. And now you get to live with the consequences." I walked away toward the federal healthcare director and the future I'd built from the ashes of their betrayal. Behind me, I heard Madison's muffled distress, my mother's awkward attempts at consolation. "You doing okay?" Dominic asked quietly as we crossed the room. I looked around at the healthcare innovators eager to collaborate with us, at Tessa's proud expression, at Nora documenting everything for her feature story. "You know what?" I said, straightening my shoulders with genuine peace. "I really am." Because the most meaningful outcome wasn't exposing their shallow little world. It was building something so much more important that their world became completely irrelevant. Epilogue: the official opening of our Memory Care Research Center drew healthcare professionals from across the nation. I stood back, watching families and caregivers explore the innovative spaces we'd created, the therapy rooms, research areas, and family support centers already filled with purpose and hope. "They're calling it the new standard in dignified care," Dominic said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. Not bad for someone who was supposedly wasting her potential. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our research center, I could see our elder care campus extending into the distance, facilities filled with residents receiving dignified care, hope taking root in lives we'd helped transform through compassion and innovation. "Ms. Harlow?" An elderly gentleman approached, his daughter supporting his arm. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you personally. Your memory care program, it's given me my dignity back." Before I could respond, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Harlow." I turned to find Madison standing there, looking less polished than usual, the strain of recent months evident in her face. "The NGO is shutting down," she said without preamble. "I thought you should hear it directly from me." "I know," I replied calmly. "We're incorporating its mission into our outreach division." Her face paled visibly. "What are you saying?" "We're expanding our community health education program. Free health literacy classes for underserved communities, preventative care workshops for families." I gestured to the elderly gentleman beside me. "Mr. Jenkins here will be leading our patient advocacy program." Madison's lips trembled with barely contained emotion. "I suppose you're satisfied now. You've completely won." "This was never about winning or losing, Madison. It was about creating something genuinely meaningful." I handed her my business card. "If you want to contribute to our education programs, call me. But this time, you'll have to demonstrate real commitment to patients over image." She left without responding, passing Nora, who was approaching with Tessa. "Your mother's here," Nora warned quietly. "She's waiting by the dedication plaque." I found her standing alone, staring at the donor recognition wall where her name was conspicuously absent among the healthcare luminaries. "Hello, Mom. This facility is extraordinary," she said softly, genuine admiration in her voice, all of it. She turned to face me, vulnerability replacing her usual certainty. "Elliot moved back to his parents last week. The medical power couple fantasy has collapsed completely." She sighed deeply. "I was wrong about so many things." She reached hesitantly for my hand. "Can I show you something important?" She led me to her car and carefully pulled out a worn leather portfolio. Inside were documents and photographs, not the ones of Elliot and Madison she'd always showcased, but ones chronicling my journey, my nursing school graduation, my first care facility position. Candid photos of me with elderly patients that I never knew she'd kept. "I preserved these too," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I became so fixated on the healthcare narrative I thought should happen, I completely missed the beautiful story of compassion that was actually unfolding right before my eyes. "Mom." My voice caught unexpectedly. "Please let me finish. I've seen the patient testimonials, the families whose lives you've transformed. You've created something profoundly meaningful, Harlow, something with real impact." She closed the portfolio carefully. "I'm proud of you, and I'm deeply sorry it took me so long to truly see your vision." Before I could respond, Dominic called from the entrance, "Harlow, the health secretary's ready for the ribbon cutting." Go, my mother said, a genuine smile replacing her usual controlled expression. This is your moment, and it's well deserved. As I walked toward the gathering crowd, I passed Elliot standing near the back. Our eyes met briefly, but there was nothing meaningful left to exchange. His presence barely registered anymore, just another face in a gathering that had come to celebrate something far more significant than our past relationship. Today isn't just about innovative facilities, I told the assembled healthcare leaders and families. It's about transformation, about honoring human dignity in every stage of life, about creating spaces where caregivers and patients can write new stories together. I caught Tess's proud nod, saw Dominic and Nora beaming from the front row. My mother stood at the back, truly seeing me perhaps for the first time. Someone once told me I was settling for less than I deserved in healthcare, I continued. They were right, but not in the way they intended. We all deserve to build something meaningful, to create care models that outlast our personal disappointments. After the ceremony, as the sun set over our care community, I stood with my core team on the rooftop healing garden. To revolutionary care, Dominic raised his glass in the golden light. To authentic impact, Nora added with a knowing smile. To building something that truly matters, I said, looking out over the community we'd helped transform. Below, people moved through the facility with purposes: caregivers, families, patients, all finding dignity and hope in the spaces we'd created from the ashes of my mother's manipulation and Elliot's weakness. I thought about patients like Mr. Jenkins, about the families finding support in our programs, about all the lives that would be touched here. My mother had tried to write my story according to her limited vision, but instead, she'd inadvertently pushed me to create something more meaningful than any of us could have imagined. Ready for the national expansion? Dominic asked, hope bright in his eyes. I smiled, feeling the last burdens of resentment finally lift from my heart. Ready for everything that comes next. Because sometimes the most healing endings aren't about proving others wrong or dwelling in the past. They're about building something so genuinely transformative that the past becomes nothing more than the first foundation stones in the legacy of compassion you've created.